Greetings from Somerville.
It feels weird not being the one to say that. This is great. I'm Michael Somerville.
I'm Steven Somerville.
and this is Greetings from Somerville. But I have to tell you, Steve, you are one of the more popular guests, if not the most popular guest.
Well, just by virtue of the number of appearances, I probably have the most downloads.
I think you do. Three appearances.
Not really fair.
And you've been requested again. People say we love your brother, we love your energy. So I've given you. I'm almost handing over the reins and making you the boss for this podcast.
I feel like you've definitely handed over the reins. I'm the host.
Yes, you.
So greetings from Somerville. This is Steve Somerville, and my guest today, stand-up comedian Michael Somerville.
Hey.
No relation.
Thank you for having me.
Well, you're welcome. You're welcome. And I think we'd like to talk a little bit about his newest album, which has just come out on iTunes today.
Yes.
If I'm to understand.
That's true.
How long has it been between albums now?
Well, that's a very good question. I put my last album out in 2016, and I was looking for a project. I had nothing going on. I wasn't, I was on the road as a comic, but I wasn't working on anything TV-wise, script-wise. And so I said, you know what, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to write a new album. Every album I've done, this is my fourth album. Every one up until now has been just you write and you accumulate enough material to put out an album, right, however long that takes. This one, I said, no, I'm going to sit down and write one. And because that's what all the...
So this was a conscious decision. You said, I'm going to create material specifically for an album.
Absolutely. And I want to give myself a year because all the names, Jim Gaffigan, Bill Burr, all these guys were kicking out like an hour a year. And I said, okay, well, even though they have, Netflix and people like that waiting for them, I said, okay, still, if that's what they're doing, that's the bar.
Sure. Set a deadline.
Let me do it. I'm going to take a year and I'm making an album.
Okay. So it sounds like it took more like 2.5 or 3 years. Good thing Netflix wasn't waiting.
I go cranking on my material. I'm on the road. Part of it. I bounce jokes off you. We do, and
we'll talk a little bit about the process in a minute.
Yeah. Well, I'm working my butt off, and I finally get on stage in Las Vegas to record about almost exactly a year later. And I'm standing on stage, and I'm about 4 minutes in. And I just have this voice going, this is not ready. This is just not ready. And as a comic, you can't wait to get to your old bits that are going to work. And
right.
You're looking down the tunnel of this thing you're about to do 45, 50 minutes that you just you're not looking forward to any part of it.
Right. Never mind immortalizing it by putting it on an album with your name on it.
Exactly.
You're saying, well, this stuff isn't any good, so let's make an album.
And it'll live forever.
And sell it to my fans who have been so supportive.
Exactly.
Let's just give them some crap that's not ready because my deadline's up. So it wasn't a hard deadline.
My self-imposed deadline that no one else
knew about.
No. So I wisely and partially with Dad's advice aborted mission. I said, okay, maybe it's not time. And I decided to take as much time as I needed to make sure it felt good.
Right. You want to put the best possible product out there.
Yeah. And
I think you have a history of that with your previous albums. I think it's all been high quality material.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, not biased at all.
No, and in fact, I would argue you are, and I didn't think it was going to be a compliment. So, given our history, I didn't know that was. You are in host mode.
Yeah. I can play nice.
Yeah, exactly. You're looking for your own fans right now. I can see where this is going.
So let's sell it a little bit. It's called Not Model Hot by Michael Somerville.
Not Model Hot.
I'm interested in how you came up with the title.
That was actually a casting director once. I used to audition, especially when I first started, for a lot of commercials and stuff in this business. And a casting director once described me as good looking but not model hot. that was, and Mom went nuts. She was so angry.
I guess it depends on what you're modeling.
Exactly.
I don't think there's just one type.
Exactly. I wasn't. It wasn't me and Brad Pitt in the same audition room.
Right. Yeah. So not Benetton model hot. Certainly like Toro or.
Another thing a casting director once said is I had a pillow face, and Mom.
Pillow face.
A pillow face. Mom's still not over that.
Pillow face would have made a great title.
Pillow face. Yeah, that one still hurts a little inside to me too.
That's comedy is pain.
It is.
I've never heard a comedian talk.
I never heard of the phrase pillow face.
No.
And
Well, that's what makes it just a brilliant title.
and they said it so.
I think that's like 100,000 sales just because they want to see what the hell Pillow Face is.
Pillow face. Well, apparently it's an industry accepted term because she said it matter of factly. I was in the room and you just hear like mumbling. I just he's got a pillow face, and like someone was taking notes and stuff.
Oh my God! So they know it's like their shorthand.
As though they were saying he has blue eyes or this, pillow face.
He's got a pillow face.
And I had this, excuse me? Excuse me? I'm sorry, what was just said behind that desk? What was it? Pillow face? And
All right.
I told Mom.
So you could have brought it to the masses.
I
dropped the ball a little there, but I think that's fine. Not Model Hot is certainly a good title, and it comes with a story. So few albums come with, or so few album titles have a story behind them. Is that true? Well, I mean, I don't know. You see comedy albums, it just feels like they went for something offbeat and clever. Comedy albums tend to sound like comedy albums.
Well, but all my albums I think have had some meaning. My first one was Welcome to Somerville, and that was intentional. Like it's my first album.
Is your coming out party.
Coming out, and Somerville always sounded much like the podcast called Greetings from Somerville. Sounded like a place, a thing.
It is. In many states.
Create a little nation, exactly. And then the second one was Handsomely Disheveled. And
which is my favorite title.
That was, in fact, Marina Squarciati, who is now on Chicago PD. She plays, what's her name? Room, whatever her show. But anyway, Chicago PD, the blonde woman on Chicago PD, was a friend of mine and in my improv class, and she wrote a sketch for us, and that's how she described me in the sketch, Michael.
Wow. So really all your titles are just plain theft. It's like road signs and the way people described you.
Exactly. And then the third one, it was called No Sudden Movements. And Claudia Perone and I used to actually we had a funny joke. That is also theft. Actually, I never even thought about it. Woody Harrelson in Cheers, when he's got all the bees on him and he's wearing a bee thing, he goes walking through the room, no sudden movements. And so growing up, that's all we ever said was no sudden movements. But I liked it because in that CD, I was doing some material that I had rewritten and worked again. So there was some repeat jokes in that CD. So I always thought it was kind of like a joke on myself. Like he wasn't moving forward. He was repeating some material.
A little inside joke.
Exactly. A little bit of
clever.
A little bit of stab at myself.
No one got it till just now.
No one got it, which is why, by the way, you sort of named this album, because I was going to name this album. I don't know if any of this is interesting or anyone's still listening, but...
they are, because I might talk again.
You're still here. But this album I wanted to call Otherwise Engaged. And that was another entendre because otherwise engaged, meaning like if I had taken the straight path in life and gotten a job and settled down, I probably would be otherwise. If I hadn't done that, I'd be engaged by now.
Right.
But I did all this crazy route.
To your soon-to-be second wife.
Exactly. Probably.
Yeah.
But I had mentioned, so I had all meanings for that. Otherwise engaged, but I had mentioned these couple title options to you, and Not Model Hot was one of them. And it was one you right away said, that's my favorite right there. And I was like, yeah, that is actually. And this was the picture I knew I was going with. For our listeners, the picture is me topless on a beach on a beach in Hawaii, striking a pose.
Lying on his stomach with his feet up in the air, like you would when you were a kid.
That's my model pose.
Yeah, it's terrific.
Yes, thank you. So it fit. The title fit with the picture, and here we are.
It looked good. So you decided in 2016 you were going to do another album. You gave yourself a year.
Yes.
And then you've discovered after a year that the material wasn't ready.
Correct.
So what is the process? I mean, in that first year, you sit down and you have to start writing all new jokes.
Yeah.
How did that go?
That's horrifying. It's so hard because every joke, up until now, I've only built mostly on concepts. So I talk a lot about sleep, eating, and relationships.
Right. No, right what you know.
And exactly. And that's been it. And then I would add a joke or have an extension of a joke. So all my material is usually the same general. This I sat down and I wasn't taking from anything. I wasn't building off anything. For much of it, I was simply creating from nothing. And it was like starting over as a comedian. All of a sudden, you're doing it for the first time. You go, what's funny? And I mean, what's fun? Like with a blank piece of paper and a pen.
It's like starting a new book.
Yeah.
If you've written, you're an author and you've written a book, and now you need a whole new idea,
whole new book,
and all new words to fill it up.
It's such respect for guys like comedians like Gaffigan, Louis C.K., all these guys who would get up and be like, yeah, that hour's gone. That's done. I am now on a new hour. Here's the blank slate.
And it's got to be a difficult thing when because you're engaged with, you have jobs to do, you have gigs to perform, and you're expected to perform. I mean, you're headlining, you're expected to be at a certain level. You have these jokes that work, and now you have to find the time to work in these new jokes that may or may not work. And I mean, I've been around you enough over the years to know that even jokes that are really funny sitting in my living room,
right.
Can just lay out there in complete silence in a club. I mean, they just don't work at all.
At all. You and I have laughed.
And then
gold.
Conversely, there are jokes that we hate that people love.
There's jokes that you don't even get.
It's jokes that we've written literally, and we're like, I don't even know what that means, but people laugh every time, so we're just going to keep saying it.
You've gotten mad at when audiences laugh. Like, why are they laughing? It doesn't even make sense.
I know, and I'm not invested at all.
No, it's true. It's hard and it's frustrating, and and they say it just gets harder as you get bigger. I talked to some big names who are on TV and they put out their hour and they say, well, it's 10 times even harder. Now every time, if you can't even go to a small club as a surprise person, but that's what a lot of comics will do. A guy like Seinfeld will drop in.
Well, that's what you hear about so often is that somebody showed up. They're in New York. They go around the 2 or 3 or 4 clubs in a night.
Exactly.
And they're just trying new material.
And the audience goes nuts.
Well, because they weren't expecting it. Nobody paid to see Seinfeld or Bill Burr.
Exactly. And then they get halfway through, and the audience is toning down, going, "This is not that funny." And they go, he's got to go somewhere and try this stuff.
Right.
You got to give him a break.
Right. Well, you see Chris Rock do that a lot.
Absolutely.
He's always around the city trying new stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Frustratingly, a lot of it was really funny right off the bat.
And then even the thing with Rock, if it wasn't, he comes back the next night and it's funny. Like, how did you do that?
Overnight.
And by the end of the week, it's a brilliant bit.
Yeah.
You're just like,
and that's it. He's got his first 2 minutes on to the next 2.
He's unbelievable. No, I'm quitting. This is it for me. I can't do this again.
So we're not setting another 1-year deadline for the next album?
No. I got some others.
Not Model Hot is going to be the swan song?
It's certainly not doing another one in a year. I love that I set the goal. I love the process. And it's right now it feels great because okay, I accomplished.
And it's absolutely. I mean, you didn't make the timeline because it wasn't ready, not because you didn't have the material.
Right.
But you did set the goal. You got the album out.
Yeah.
It's very funny.
Well, thank you. I appreciate
people should definitely listen. So the first year you wrote all this new material. You worked it into your gigs when you could.
Yeah.
You started getting feedback. You went out to do your 45 or 50 minutes. It wasn't ready.
Right.
So now take us through what happened the next year or however long it was between then and now. Did you find that most of the material was going to be good enough? Did some of it have to get washed away entirely and you have to start writing some new stuff? How did it go from not ready to ready?
Yeah, I would say all of the above. I think part of what I was doing with the first year was I was telling my jokes with a lot of enthusiasm and really selling them. And that's a good thing to do as a comedian. But part of my jokes I've always liked have been jokes that I believe on their own. If I'm half dead, half energy on stage, the words are just really still funny. Like the words are just funny. And so I started telling the jokes I wasn't sure about with a little less energy to see. And sure enough, we're getting no laughs. So I could get a laugh on a joke if I was really selling it, committed, making a silly face and the whole thing. But once you left the performance aspect out, it just was dumb words. And so, I had to throw out a chunk. I had the first 10 minutes were about airplanes. And, I mean, that's the oldest, hackiest thing in the world is the airplane jokes. But my buddy was like, no, I think he made airplane jokes funny again. And
you brought him back.
Yeah, that's exactly.
Like the Charleston.
That's exactly.
We're bringing him back airplane jokes.
Exactly. I mean, he was like, I think he made airplane jokes funny again. And I was kind of thinking, I think, and even audiences would be like, is he doing airplane jokes? Is that even allowed?
When the audience is saying, wow, is this stuff? Didn't I see this in 1986?
What's the deal with the peanuts?
Yeah, didn't Leno do that joke before Tonight Show?
Well, the best thing is, right before I was ready, I thought I was ready to do the album. After that first year, I did an hour at Caroline's, and I had everybody out. Mark Perrone, which grew up for a childhood friend, who is...
which is a big show for you, the Caroline's hour.
Absolutely. The hour at Caroline's, big deal. And I was close to being ready with the hour. It wasn't quite a year, but I thought it was getting there, and I was ready to run it somewhere and show people. And Mark is a man of few words, as you know, but always.
But they're poignant words. They're to the point.
And never was it more true. And, I get off stage, and a lot of friends came support, so everyone's supportive. And I'm up there, and I'm selling it, and I'm making my faces, and I'm talking about the airplanes, and I'm doing my whole thing. I do my whole show, and I get off, and everyone's thrilled. Dad comes back, says it was wonderful. Your friends are great. Everyone's great. It was a feel-good night.
Right.
But at the end of the day,
right. And Caroline's big club, fun environment.
Everyone, it's my buddy Somerville on stage. Everything's great. Everything feels good, but I'm going, how was it? And Dad's going, you're great, your friends, this and that, great. And Mark comes wandering back to the green room, and everyone's just the hubbub, the energy, this and that. And finally, I just turned to him. I've known him since I was 3. I trust him. I go, be honest with you, what'd you think? And he just goes, I wouldn't buy that album. It's all he said to me the whole night. That was it. He got back on the train, went home.
Yeah.
And I never got those words out of my head.
No.
It's just...
No, and that's the great thing about your relationship with Mark. Yeah. He's not going to sugarcoat it. You're not going to take it personally. No. You wanted the truth, and he's going to give you the truth. It's
100% uncensored. Yeah, I wouldn't buy that album.
Yes, he's a tremendous friend. All right, so for a little background, Michael, for those of you who don't know, spends some time on cruises.
Yeah, on cruise ships.
And one of the things that we did together while he was on cruises, you would send me videos that we called cabin videos.
Cabin videos.
Of what I can only characterize as really raw jokes. I mean, sometimes they weren't always videos, but when they were hilarious to watch because he had his phone like right up against. You couldn't even see his whole face in frame. It'd be this pillow face, I guess it is. But like 3/4 of it took up the whole frame, and it would be him telling jokes. Mostly, I think brand new jokes.
Right.
And then I would respond with mostly which one was my favorites.
Yep.
And then if I had any suggestions for add-ons or tweaks or something along those lines.
Right.
So how did all that fit into the process? I mean, how much of a contribution have I made?
Well, that way, a huge contribution. When you're stuck on a cruise ship, anyone who's ever been on one, well, for pleasure, you know that even though they can be fun, you're isolated. There's, not a lot of, you're at sea at sometimes, you're not a lot of contact. And as a comedian, one of the things we do is work on jokes during the day and then get on stage at night and run them. Get a local, whatever club, this and that. On a ship, I didn't have that luxury. I had a couple shows a week, but in the big theater, and that was my night. And you have to bring your A game. You can't mess around. Obviously, everyone's on a trip of a lifetime.
Right, those jokes all have to be polished and funny.
Got to do exactly.
Yeah.
So I was looking for an outlet. I said, I need an open mic land. I need someone to run. And so, I've always for years bounced jokes off of you, even though you've proclaimed you're not a comedian.
I'm not a stand-up punch guy.
You're not a stand-up punch.
I can't write a joke.
Yeah, you're an incredibly funny person, great script writer, great dialogue writer.
I cannot write a stand-up joke. If my life depended on it, I would have to say my goodbyes.
And sure enough, but I've always loved bouncing stuff off of you because I trust you. If nothing else, you've seen hours and hours and hours of me perform. You know my tone, you know my voice, you know me, and so you have a sense for me. And it was always so. I started thinking, how can I get some feedback? And I was thought, can I make a video and send it to somebody? At first, I thought post it online, and I go, that's just too unprofessional. Opening yourself to criticism and comment. Right. I need someone I trust, and so I said, I'll start making these videos. I had all this material, and I'll start making these videos and just sending to you, and then you would get I think you just kind of commented on what you liked, right? Just whatever.
Generally speaking, I would send back the ones that were my favorites.
Yeah.
And then if I had an idea that I thought maybe would work with it,
exactly,
or a tweak or a rewording of something, but these were very raw jokes. They were there was no enthusiasm. This was not a performance. This was almost reading from his notes,
and I was literally
and
reading.
Half of them were half baked. He would just read, and the joke was sort of in there, and I could, I knew what you were going for most of the time. But my feedback was essentially these are the ones I like the most out of this group.
Yeah.
But there would sometimes be a lot of cabin videos. I mean, we get a bunch of them.
I did at one point when I really was the beginning of this album when I was really cranking. I think I must have sent you 40 or 50 over the course of and only a minute or two long because that's how I could only send so much over the phone.
Right.
A video.
Right. No, we get
video.
5 or 6 joke concepts.
Exactly.
Per video.
No.
But sometimes I'd get them. By the time I looked at them, I'd have like 4 or 5 different cabin videos.
Yeah.
I'd be like, I'm behind. I
and
gotta
for me,
get back
I'm in the
to
middle
them.
of the ocean, staring at my phone, waiting for you to respond.
And I'm like, oh, I'll do it tomorrow.
Yeah, I know. I've got nothing else to do. Well, the beauty of that was a few things. One, I wanted to, every joke I've written, even if they were bad, half-baked, I always felt like there was something there, or maybe not, but I needed someone to tell me there wasn't. And so one of the crazy things about that, I would say the cabin videos, I've told you this before, 85%, 90% of the ones that you, as soon as you would like one, the clouds would clear in my head and go, of course, he's right, that is a good one. And the ones you didn't like, I'm like, of course, that one's terrible. But I could not do that by myself. I couldn't do it on my own. I didn't have but you said it, and as soon as you said it, it was gospel.
Yeah.
it was. I was like, he's right.
And not so much because I said it. It's just, it gives you clarity. When somebody else gives you feedback on your work, you see it slightly differently.
Exactly.
You know, it's like the way your house is clean until someone comes over, and you're like, oh, it's really not that clean.
Right.
I probably need to straighten up.
Maybe
if I'm going to have people here.
Well, and it gave me the confidence to, even when on the road, to mess around with some of the ones I really liked then. If I liked one, I really thought it was good. You also liked it, and you said, yeah, I really like that one. I would that night, just slip it in real quick, just drop a few in. So there's no question that you definitely, you were at the very beginning of this CD with some real bad jokes.
Yeah, some of them are kernels of what I thought were really funny jokes. So, and not to spend too much more time on this, but then what was the process after that? So you had sent me a raw joke, and I said, this is a joke I like, and I think we both had the understanding that it was, it had the potential to be a good joke. It wasn't currently worded correctly. It wasn't tight. So what happened then? Then do you actually work on the exact wording that you're going to try before you try it, and then you go and just develop it over time by telling it?
Yeah. The interesting thing, when I first started doing comedy, I used to write so specifically on my computer or even by hand sometimes in like wording. The wording of the joke is this. No, move that word there, like you were writing a script on a computer.
Right.
For this one, I don't know if I've gotten lazy, but I do less of that, and I talk them out loud more. Sometimes just in my room, my hotel room, wherever I am, I'll kind of do a show, much like I would do for you, a cabin video, but no one recording, just saying them out loud, because sometimes we're funny people, and sometimes just in doing stuff, you find the thing. So I wonder... and
you'll ad-lib something that you would never have thought of sitting in your room.
Exactly.
And to me, it's a little surprising to know that you used to write... you used to try to be so specific with your wording in the writing stage because you're a great ad-libber, you're tremendous on stage, and that feels like the more natural way to work out that sort of comedy is to get up there, tell the joke, and say, it didn't work. But was it because it's not funny, or is it because I'm not doing it right?
Because I'm not doing it correctly, exactly. And the process from there, it was more of that. It was more out loud and more on stage. I remember at one point just saying, I need more repetitions. These are funny jokes. Some of them are really good, some of them are good. But I need to be on stage, and the audience is the ultimate judge.
Having that conversation with you a year and a half ago, we were saying, I just have to get on stage and start telling these things. It was probably right after you said, this isn't ready.
It's not ready, exactly.
And then you booked a bunch of stuff in the city when you were here.
Yeah.
And you were doing 3 or 4 shows a night. You were going from club to club. Doing 5 minutes or 7 minutes or whatever it was, just to get these jokes out there.
To get them in you, to get them that feeling. I get it now. I understand
What prompted the change? Was it just experience that you went from trying to word the joke perfectly before you would tell it to, or was it just a confidence level that it's okay to tell a bad joke because now I have, I can couch it in 2 good jokes on either side. How did you change from trying to write the perfect joke to saying, all right, I'll go up there with a concept and find the joke? And mess
around. Well, that's what I'm wondering. I don't know. Did I just get lazy? Did I, do I not sit down and work as hard at the laptop or at the, writing? I don't know. I do.
Well, do you find it to be a more effective method? Do you think the jokes developed faster or more completely? Or was it something you were doing anyway? You were writing this exact joke and then it turned out that it wasn't working and you had to mess with it anyway.
Yeah.
And so why put in the time trying to perfect something that's never perfect, even if you put in the time?
Yeah, well, I do like... now I'm confused. What are we talking about?
Yeah, I've gotten off. That's my fault.
I don't know what we're saying.
But it's just interesting that the process changed. Usually somebody has a process for a number of years in the beginning of your career and then it's changed subsequently. I just going for that.
Well, I always liked. I do believe, and more so now than when I first started. The audience is the ultimate judge and the ultimate boss. They're your boss. They tell you what's funny, and in order to do that, some guys, truly work out material on stage. And that's a talent that I don't have, and not a lot of guys do. Although I think some comedians try to say they do, so they don't have to go home and write. No, I just find it on stage. Well, you haven't found it. But for me, it was like I knew that. I think what happened is I got to the point where I had this chunk of stuff, and I knew there was something in there, and that was, for me, it was the repetition of doing it, because I was going to find which ones I looked forward to telling. I had this little internal monitor that in me, while I'm on stage, I look forward to certain jokes, because I know I like telling them, and I know they're going to do well. And the more I ran all these jokes that I just didn't know that well, I thought there was something to all of them. There was a reason they're still in the mix, but I don't know. And I felt the more I ran those, they would separate themselves. And I go, okay, those are the ones that are starting to feel right and feel good. And
I used to call those your AAA jokes.
AAA,
the
yes.
AAA jokes that they're funny, they're good.
Exactly.
They're good ball players. They just can't hit at the major league level for whatever reason.
Exactly. That's right. You called them the AAA.
I called them the AAA jokes.
And didn't we do something once where it was AA, single A, double A, AAA?
I think we tried rating them.
Tried to grade them, yeah.
But yeah,
and A, B, and C we did once, yeah.
Yeah.
Is it an A? Is it a B or a C joke? Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you about specific jokes. If you remember, if there's any that stick in your mind, were there any jokes that you thought were good, that had great potential, and you just couldn't get them to work?
Yes.
And so they're not and they're not on the album?
Well, the answer is yes, but even better, there's an answer. I couldn't get it to work. No one likes it, and it is on the album.
And it is on the album.
I got so mad at the audiences.
Well, we won't tell that one. We're going to punish you with this joke you hate.
I would be so frustrated.
I still love it.
It's my favorite joke ever. I said, your body changes as you're getting older. My hamstrings are more ham than strings. And nobody ever laughed.
I saw you actually in Pennsylvania not that long ago. You told that joke and you yelled at us when we didn't laugh. You actually yelled at the audience.
Well, it is on this album.
I think it was one of the few curse words I've ever heard you say. It was directed at us.
Oh my God! You guys, you caught me at the end of like month 4 of trying to force that joke down people's throats.
Yeah.
And I was so mad. When I did the album, I told the editor, if you have to add laughs at the end of that joke, you do it, because that joke.
Whatever sitcom canned laughter, I don't care.
It's so true. Now, the flip side of that is there's a joke that, to answer your question, wasn't working, wasn't happening, and so I got rid of it. You just, you look and you go, yeah, it's not working. You can't make the world listen to it. It doesn't work. And I've since found it, and it's now one of my great new jokes. It's not on the album, but it will
be on the next album.
On the next album, which is going to be one joke long.
Better be a good joke.
It's going to be the best joke ever written.
That's interesting. So a joke that didn't work for a long time that you tried to develop, and then you said now it is working.
Yeah.
Which means that even after you committed to the material for the album, you stuck with the joke.
Yeah.
You kept trying to develop it.
I never threw anything away. Every idea, every concept is all. And it's funny, when I finished this album, I recorded this one. It takes a couple months to edit, so we did this in October, and now it's just coming out now. But as soon as I finished it, I was so revved up and excited about stand-up, I sat right down almost the next day and said, all right, let me start on the next album. And the first thing I did was take all those old concepts that weren't on this album and go, there's something there, let me work on it. And it was about 2 or 3 weeks ago now that I looked down and looked, no, there's a reason they're not on here. There's nothing there.
It's not that they weren't there. They were just close and you weren't a skilled enough writer to make them work.
Yeah,
it's that they didn't work.
There's a reason. And again, that's just time and repetition. The more when you first look at something, you think it's great. It's like anything you write. You're like, this is great, this is amazing. You take some time, you go back and look at it, and you're like, that's not right, and this is missing. And it's just time. I don't know.
Well.
But thank you.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you for the look behind the scenes, a little peek behind the curtain.
Yeah.
Michael Somerville, again, his new album, Not Model Hot.
Yes.
It's available on iTunes.
Right now.
Right now. Go out. You don't have to go anywhere. Just, click.
Click on iTunes.
On iTunes. Buy the album.
Yes.
It's worth it. It's 2.5 years worth of blood, sweat, and tears. Everyone put a lot of effort into it.
Yes.
And it is terrific. I mean, it is funny. Probably your best album.
Oh, thank you.
And I'm a big fan.
And
look for Michael. He'll be touring.
Yes. And I'll be on iTunes. Thanks for listening to the podcast.
Thank you so much. This is Steve Somerville.
Yeah, I'm Michael Somerville. I was going to say like, rate, and review us, but no, go buy the album.
Buy the album. But, subscribe, rate, review.
We'll see you next time, everyone. Thanks so much.